Seattle Storm, a season to remember.
And what a season it was, culminating in a champagne celebration in Virginia, followed by a parade through the streets of Seattle. As we welcome you to a season to remember, a look back at the third Storm championship in franchise history before they kick off their 20th season in league history, alongside team analyst Elise Woodward. I'm Aaron Levine. Elise, how fun was that championship last year?
Well, we've got to experience 3 here in Seattle with the Seattle Storm, and that one was as unexpected as any that we've ever seen. They started the year, they hadn't won in the playoffs for years, and then here they are, the WNBA champs. And it was because it was so unexpected, I think, that made it so sweet.
We saw this core group of Sue Bird, Breanna Stewart, Jewel Lloyd evolve over a number of years. Well, why do you think this formula worked so well with a number of key role players as well?
Well, I think that Breanna Stewart came back better than ever, and she was the best player in the world last season. She was the MVP, but I think that Natasha Howard moving over from Indiana to the Seattle Storm was the huge difference. She fit in perfectly with Breanna Stewart and provided something that they hadn't seen before, and that she was so good defensively but still really, really fast and agile. And so the mismatch game with those two together was really special.
Unfortunately, Natasha Howard is back this season again. We're going to get to that in just a minute. They had the advantage of being the #1 overall seed heading into the playoffs for just the second time in franchise history. That was a product of a fantastic regular season. Let's take a look back at that.
The 2018 season started off with mostly familiar faces. The core team was all back from the past 2 seasons, but they were hungry to improve after 2 straight years of first-round playoff exits. There were also some new faces. Dan Hughes was in as head coach, and he immediately set to work instilling a defensive mindset.
Realizing we haven't had a winning season since 2011, and analyzing what can we do to put us in a situation to stair-step, to become a winner, to become a playoff advancer, to become a champion. We have to expand our thought of defense into possession. Possession is when we got it done.
On June 16th, the Storm would face the #1 ranked Connecticut Sun in the biggest test yet for the 7-3 Storm.
And Seattle has got a huge statement win.
The Storm would continue their hot streak, and by the All-Star break, they had the best record in the league.
This year just felt different. It felt special. The players that came along, they were just special players. So I think we kind of knew something was going on, but we weren't so caught up on, we got to win a championship, we got to win a championship. It really was just, we want to grow as better people, better players.
I think what made this season so unique was that, nobody really expected this of us. And I don't even know that we expected it of ourselves. We just kind of went through the season and took it one game at a time and kind of figuring things out. And, before we knew it, it was All-Star break and we were #1 in the league. And like, how did this happen? But it kind of, in some ways, it allowed us to grow into what we ended up being at the end. And it was great not to have those expectations.
As they gained momentum, it was obvious this team was having fun, enjoying every second of their successful run.
Yeah, the handshakes. Usually every time we shoot free throws, we go around, everyone has a handshake, and that kind of just created itself on its own, really. And then it was like, it became a thing. We're like, okay, we got to think of some different stuff and fun stuff to do. That was what we do. It made it a lot of fun. I made warm-ups a lot of fun for sure.
The Storm would cap the season with a win over Dallas, giving them a 26-8 record and the #1 seed heading into the playoffs.
It's funny because handshakes is something I think of high school players doing before games during pregame, but it's pretty clear that team was having fun last year. How critical was that for team chemistry?
Well, I think winning is fun. And so anytime you're winning, it's going to be fun. But I also think that you're not going to win unless you enjoy your teammates most of the time. And this team, you could feel the vibe from them before the season even started over at SBU where they train. They just had something that was everybody for each other. And I think when you look led by Sue Bird, who's been around forever, and how she leads this team and how she's a coach on the floor is pretty special, and how she can be super serious at the same time, relaxed enough to have some fun when it's warranted.
We saw the home win over Connecticut Sun. They referred to it just now. What do you remember from that game, and how important was that in terms of getting everyone on board to think they could potentially win this thing in the end of the season?
Well, Connecticut was undefeated for so long during the season, and they came into Seattle as the team to beat in the East. And Seattle at the time had lost, remember, they lost their season opener at home to Phoenix, and they went on the road to beat the Mercury. And there was question marks about Seattle, and they answered the questions with this statement win against Connecticut. It was one of their best performances of the season, and I think it gave them the belief that they could be the best team in the league.
You mentioned Breanna Stewart. We can't go the entire segment without even expanding on the league MVP last year. I know it's difficult to talk about her in the present because of her having to miss this upcoming season because she had a career year last year. What made her so effective?
Well, I think that she is an absolute matchup nightmare. And when you think about Breanna Stewart being 6'4" and her length is over 7 feet, her arm, she's got a longer reach than LeBron James. So how do you guard her? She shoots the three as well as anybody in the league, but she can take you inside and score over the top of you. She's got the softest touch for a player. She moves well without the basketball. You're not going to put an interior player on her. She'll blow by him and she'll shoot the three. You're not going to put a smaller player on him because she'll post you up. And the ability for her to raise her game and improve every year in so many facets, the way she rebounds, is remarkable. And it's a huge loss to this team. She was the MVP last year, deservedly so. 21 points per game, almost 22 points per game, over 8 rebounds, block shots, defense, runs the floor, handles the ball. And the big storyline for this season is how they respond without her and how they're able to mold a new identity.
She has a long career ahead of her, though, because she was one of the youngest to win an MVP award last year. We can't forget, though, about the ageless wonder, and that is Sue Bird. She's in our studio catching up with Michelle Ludka coming up next on our Storm Special, A Season to Remember. Well, it was unanimous. Last year's Storm Championship was dedicated to Sue Bird, the 37-year-old who thought another title may never come. And yet, there's no sign of an end coming for the future Hall of Famer. She sat down with our Michelle Ludka.
Sue, obviously last season was a huge year, the Storm winning their 3rd WNBA championship. Obviously, some time has passed. You've had some time to reflect. First of all, congratulations on that, by the way. It's still, you know, good to get the congratulations in there.
Yeah, it's not
later.
bad.
Yeah.
I had a whole year of it, though, so I guess time to go back to work.
Well, I guess. But you have had time to reflect. What made that group of athletes so special and so capable of such an amazing run?
I don't know. I think it was just a really good mix of someone like myself who has been with the Storm for so long, kind of seeing the highs and the lows, never really thinking we were going to get back to that place. A young group led by Stewie and Jewel who, I don't know, really stepped up, had some, you know, ups and downs the first couple of years, making the playoffs but getting knocked down early, and then finally putting it all together. Looking back, it really was one of those special years, and that's usually what happens. When you win, you look back and you're like, yeah, it's like there's something different about that group.
It was magical.
Yeah, worked out.
When you do look back, what is your fondest memory of the 2018 season?
Fondest memory? You know, honestly, I think it was actually early in training camp. I can say now, looking back, like, we knew we had something special. I don't think we actually knew it, but we understood, like, okay, we're not where we need to be. And we actually lost our first home game against Phoenix. And there was something about how we responded to that where it was like, all right, we need to change what we're doing. It's go time. Like, this is a group that could win. We need to get, you know, things moving in the right direction. So I don't know if that necessarily counts as a fond memory, but looking back, it's like we knew that early. Like somewhere in the back of our minds, like, all right, losing your first game's not it. Like, we need to change this.
When you look back at that group's success, obviously Dan Hughes in his first year of coaching with the Storm, how much can you attribute this success to him?
Yeah, I think what Dan did was we had a group that was had been together for a couple years. You know, I mentioned Stewie and Jewel. It goes beyond that. We really had like a core of like 5, 6 players that had been together, had like a lot of familiarity in terms of playing together, chemistry. and adding Natasha really elevated our play. And then you enter Dan. So he was inheriting this team that we kind of already knew how to play with one another. And what Dan did was just like allow that. And it sounds so simple, but it's really not. From a coach's standpoint, I think coaches can at times come in and try to, make their mark or put their print on things. And he kind of understood, like, oh, I have a group that understands each other. Let me just allow them to be who they are. And he brought this this sense of calm, I think.
What is it about this game that made you fall in love with it when you were younger, but that still resonates with you decades later?
Yeah. A lot of times you might hear things like, stay in the moment, or, enjoy the journey, or, all these cliches.
All the cliche fun things, yes.
But last year, I was literally doing that. And I think it was a product of my age, kind of being there before, and knowing that we did have a special team. We did have a special group, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity, because for me, to be honest, I mean, like, it's no secret, like, I'm not going to play forever, and that could be the last time. So when I was 24 when we won our first time here. I was 30 when we won the second time. And even in those moments, yeah, I was in the moment, I was playing, I knew we could win, but it's always like, you're in your career and there's many years left, so you're not really, whereas last year I was like, oh my God, we better win now, because I don't know if I'm gonna ever get back here again. So I was legit living and dying with every possession, because I've never been more in the moment. So as you go through your career, how you see things change. Again, not necessarily better or worse, but you're just definitely more aware.
Sue, always love chatting with you. Thanks so much for the insight, as always. Best of luck this season.
Thank you.
We should also mention that Sue won her 3rd league sportsmanship award last year as well. She hopefully has a number of years left in her as well. We don't want her to see. We don't want to see her retire anytime
she
soon.
said she's not going to play forever, but I don't believe her. I think she is going to. She was better last year than I think she's ever been.
What's her overall legacy at this point?
Well, I think it changes with that championship last year. I think that she was already the best point guard in the world. She's already an Olympian. She already has as many gold medals as anybody in women's basketball, with 4 gold medals, and she wants to make it 5, and there's no reason to say that she can't. Her legacy will be as, I think, one of the best passers we've ever seen in basketball, period. And that's men, that's women. I mean, she is John Stockton to me on the women's side, where she sees things before they happen. She's Tom Brady on the football field, where she gets players open that don't even know they're open.
Right.
And players are so much better playing alongside her because of where she gets them the ball, when she gets them the ball, and how she thinks the game.
That's exactly what Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis said at Media Day earlier this week. She basically sees her open. She said, I didn't know I was open, but Sue started passing the ball, and then I realized I was open. What are the other intangibles that she brings to the court?
Well, I think toughness, I think smarts, I think that she, as the point guard, is the coach on the floor, and she is constantly pointing and guiding, and little tiny details that she sees that she can then tell her teammates, you need to move over 3 feet on this high pick and roll, because they're shading you this direction, and then they can go and implement it. And it's these things that if you're not as experienced and not as smart, you're not going to find those, you're not going to see those and be able to explain them. She'd be a brilliant coach if she wanted to be when she's done. I mean, she already essentially does a lot of that on the floor, but she can do whatever she wants.
Go the path of Noelle Quinn, who's gone from
That's
player
true.
to coach of the season.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird seeing Noelle Quinn on the bench as a coach, but hopefully...
She coached at the high school level for years and was outstanding, so she'll be great.
Look forward to that. There's no question that Sue Bird played a memorable role throughout the playoffs last year, and especially in that conference final series against Phoenix. Broken nose and all. We're going to take a look back at that championship run next as we celebrate a season to remember right here on your official Storm station.
Bird heaves truth. Sue Bird, it is her night.
Sometimes you have to say screw it, and that's pretty much what happened in that moment. I got a little, out of character, upset and emotional at one point, and I think the mask helped. Ripping that thing off, it got everybody fired up, so hey, it got us the win.
Oh, the many faces of Sue Bird. That includes the mask during the playoffs last year. So we welcome you back, Aaron Levine with Elise Woodward. Elise, the good players get it done during the regular season. The legends are remembered for those playoff moments. What stands out to you about that semifinal series against Phoenix?
Well, it was one of the best series that I can remember in any sport. It was so entertaining, and I think for Sue Bird, she's always known as being in control, to being the teacher, the maestro, the one that's controlling everything, and instead she got fired up, and she, got a little bit, different than what we've seen her. And the emotion and the feistiness, I think, spurred everybody on. And the fact that all of a sudden she became this offensive weapon. She averaged a season low in attempts last year, only 8 shots a game, and she's a player that can score.
Right.
That game, she was the offensive weapon, and she was the difference maker, and it was a new role.
Game 5 goes off for 14 of her 22 points in the final quarter. How impressive was that game and that moment in particular?
I think for Sue, that goes down as one of her best moments. And a player that's always known for getting everybody else involved. She called her own number. I've said it since she was a rookie out of Connecticut. She could score 15, 20 points a game, every game if she wanted to, but that's not how the team is best. And that game, they needed her at that moment to be a big-time scorer. And she's like, all right, I'm going to do it. It is something I will never forget, how clutch she was. What a great series that was, and doing it against one of her best friends in the world, Diana Taurasi.
1 week from today, the season opener against Phoenix. How appropriate and awesome is it going to be receiving their championship rings in front of the Mercury?
Well, in front of the Mercury is really, because that was a series that you're going to remember for years, and the fact that it was such a good matchup. It's unfortunate that Diana Taurasi is hurt. She's getting back surgery. She won't be able to play in that game, because it'd be even better to see her on the floor again. As all Storm fans know, they love to jeer for Diana, against Diana Taurasi. But other than that, it'll be an absolutely perfect night.
They'll have a chance to jeer later this season, hopefully,
Correct.
when Diana is back. It was a series to remember. So much energy from the Storm Crazies at home, and then a championship clincher on the road. Let's take a trip down memory lane.
The Storm rolled to a 2-0 series lead, led by MVP Breanna Stewart, who continued her steady dominance, scoring 22 in Game 1 and 25 in Game 2. Then the Storm hit the road for Washington and a chance at the sweep.
Think about what connects the two. That's getting the balls. That's rebounding. That's 50-50 balls.
Breanna Stewart and Natasha Howard both came out red hot, combining for 32 points in the first half. Sammy Whitcomb, who rose to the occasion throughout the playoffs, did it again, dropping some huge buckets. And Alicia Clark was a steady presence throughout, pulling down rebound after rebound.
I think for me, it was just, I know I needed to be the leader defensively. And so I wanted to come out strong and aggressive and be that leader for us. And, I take pride in doing the little stuff. I didn't want to go to a Game 4. My body was like, listen, this is all you got, get it done today. So, just focusing on the little things. It's just so special, the hard work of everyone's stories on this team and where everyone came from and how, we're all here for a reason, a purpose, and to look at each other and know our struggle and know what we've been through. Maybe less than a minute left, Mystics got fouled there at the free throw line, and Sue huddled us up. And she's like, guys, we did it. We did it.
The only team in Seattle sports history to win 3 professional league championships. We talked about the role players, and that really stood out in that clinching game against the Washington Mystics. Natasha Howard, Sammy Whitcomb, Alicia Clark. How impressive were they in that game?
Well, that was the difference, in that they had their stars to carry them, but it was players that were coming off in roles. Do your job and do it really well. Sammy Whitcomb was so good. And also, don't forget Jewel Lloyd, when Sammy Whitcomb got hot, said, you go, you got the hot hand. And the selflessness of this entire team was every person on the roster.
It was a celebration to remember as well, everyone getting soaked in the locker room. Did you think Sue was going to get a 3rd career title before it was all said and done?
Well, it was a rebuild, and so you never know how long it's going to take. I think last year when the season began, you thought, well, they're pretty talented. You did not expect it, though, and it was so emotional. Dan Hughes hugging his wife, Mary. That's his first ever WNBA championship. for Sue Bird, her third, and she was more emotional about the third one than she was about the first or second. Just how much fun. It's how we started. Just this team had so much fun together. They gave the city so much fun, and it was a blast.
We want to celebrate a fourth championship in Seattle as well, including a parade at a potential new arena. But this year would be what, UW? Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, who knows what it's going to be. It's a transitional year in terms of the arena, that's for sure, between Everett and UW, and it'll be fun though, exposed to new fans.
We're going to take a look at what's to expect in the upcoming 2019 season next on our Storm Championship season to remember.
MVP!
What else do you say about Stewie? You know, she had an unbelievable season. I mean, just so proud of her, her growth this year, her mentality. It was amazing to watch. I'm glad I had a front row seat for it.
That's so tough to watch, knowing that Stewie won't be on the court this season after an Achilles injury overseas. So how do the Storm regroup, knowing they're going to have to play without the league MVP?
Well, I don't think you can replace her, that's for sure. But other players are going to have to just change their roles. Crystal Langhorne was a two-time All-Star that got hurt at the beginning of last year and then came off the bench. And that was a big development, and that they had such a strong bench. I bet you she will be moved into the starting lineup at some points. They're going to have to get more production, more shots in other places. Jewel Lloyd, former #1 overall pick in the draft, she has the ability to take over games, but it's inconsistent. She has grown, her game has grown. Is this where she has a breakout year and becomes an MVP candidate for the entire season? We will see, but we know one thing, that it will be a different looking team without 6'4" Stewie in the middle.
Quickly, what are you most excited for this season?
Well, I think it's just the change of this team and the excitement around this city and the excitement around women's basketball. It's growing, even though they're going to be in Everett and UW instead of at Key Arena because of the remodel. I think the excitement is palpable for this team and in this city and for this group of women that is they're so good at basketball and they're great in the community.
We cannot wait for this journey here on Q13 Fox and Joe TV and see where it goes. The Storm kicking off their regular season 1 week from today, next Saturday in Everett. For Elise Woodward, I'm Aaron Levine. Have a great night and a quick and safe recovery to head coach Dan Hughes as well.